So my name is Sherri Parliament. I am Mississauga Arts Council's Communications Manager. So I'll be taking you through our MARTYS nomination information session today. And this is my lovely colleague, Susan Durnin, our administration lead, who's going to be helping me today. And yeah, thanks for all joining us, and we'll get started now. Okay, so a couple little things. So this is what we're going to be going through. I'm going to be going through a description of what is the Mississauga Arts Awards, a couple first steps and important dates and deadlines for you to be aware of, MARTY nomination eligibility, our Artistic Excellence Awards, our Community Arts Awards as well, and then our nomination application requirements, frequently asked questions, and we're going to take you through a nomination web form for you to get a chance to see what that's like. And then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and that will be the end of our presentation. And don't worry about the slides. We're going to be sending out the slides to everyone that's joined us here today. So don't worry about trying to scribble everything down really, really quickly. No need to worry about that. So what is the Mississauga Arts Awards? The Mississauga Arts Awards are MAC's annual celebration. We recognize outstanding individual and organizational contributions to the arts and culture activity here in Mississauga. And then it's happened each year. We acknowledge honorees whose work helps transform and advance artistic communities through artistic excellence and community arts awards. And you can learn more about the history behind this important arts awards at macarts.ca/MARTYS. So you're an artist, you're an arts group, you want to submit a nomination. That's wonderful. We really do encourage that. So I would say the first steps of you and how you're going to go about doing that is the biggest thing here is to read the guidelines and criteria in full. So everything that I'm going to be discussing today is in our guidelines. You would best to go through that. It's on macarts.ca. /MARTYS. It's all on there. And then once you've read through the guidelines in full, it should answer, all the questions you have. Then you would compile a material that's listed in those guidelines and then submit to the forms listed below. And then that's how we would go about doing it. Okay. And then a couple things to note here is important dates and deadlines. So our nominations are now open. They open in January, and then nominations close March 11th, 2024 at 9 a.m. We do not accept late submissions, so we encourage you to submit ahead of time. I would say even a couple days before, especially if, let's say, you want to make any changes to anything, or, if you had any issues with anything, you have a little bit more time to do so. And then our finalists are now being announced in May 2024, and our award show is June 26, 2024. For those people who might have some knowledge of the MARTYs, typically would have them in May, but this year it's new. It's on June 26, 2024. So mark that in your calendars. Okay, and then who can apply? So it is open to all professional artists and arts groups who are residents of the city of Mississauga, have a significant connection to Mississauga, or have made a major contribution to the arts within Mississauga. So what that means is, let's say you don't necessarily live here, or you have lived here in the past and you contribute and work here throughout the week very often, then yes, that would consider apply. Or very easy, you live here, you contribute to the arts and culture sector here, yes, you do qualify. So you have to basically show in your nomination what is your relevance to Mississauga. What have you contributed to Mississauga in your work? And then next thing, yes, each award has its own set of requirements and eligibility criteria, which is listed in the guidelines very clearly of what you would qualify for and how you would submit for that award. You do not need to be a member of MAC, but we do encourage you to please become one. Though if you are selected as a finalist, you will be required to join MAC as a member. Individual memberships cost at $30 a year. We have lots of opportunities and benefits for becoming a member and getting involved with us. So I highly recommend to check out macarts.ca/membership to learn more about the benefits. Okay, so I'm going to get through a couple of the different awards and describe them a little to be more in full. So we have our Artistic Excellence Awards. This is a largest chunk of the MARTY Awards. This recognizes that excellence can be achieved at any stage in any artist's career. We celebrate in both established and emerging categories. So the established winner would receive the Big Beautiful Glass Trophy Award, and the emerging categories receive a beautiful certificate, and they received recognition on stage in front of all their peers and arts community and leaders and both 500 people in audience. So it's a wonderful celebration. And then the finalists and winners in each artistic discipline, which I'll get into which discipline is which, are selected by an independent jury of experts of that discipline in the community. So for established artists, so as you can see here, you have to demonstrate a strong activity within the Mississauga arts community with a large history of public exhibition, performance, or publication. Established artists, it goes based off of years of experience. So it would be professionally for more than 5 years. And then I'll get into the merging category in a bit, but it would be 5 or less years. And they're recognized by their peers, a professional in their artistic discipline. So let's say you're applying for an established nomination in a specific discipline. You need to show how many years you've had. So for example, in your CV, you show the amount of years of exhibition experience that you have, and you show the amount of influence you've been involved in Mississauga. Make it very clear to the jury that you are an established artist. So that would be my recommendation to you for that. Okay, so eligibility here before I get into emerging. So if you received a MARTY award or certificate of excellence in any of the following 3 years, so 2023, 2022, or 2021, you're not eligible to be nominated. You have to wait 3 years in between. But if you were selected as a finalist but did not end up receiving an award in any of those years, you are encouraged to submit your nomination for a 2024 MARTY award, and we highly encourage that every year. Okay, so emerging artists. So the emerging artist is like I said earlier, less than 5 years of experience in that artistic discipline. So really what we're looking for is that you have like a modest amount of work. You've shown that you've sustained your development and showing your artistic skills in that discipline. You're showing that you have an activity within Mississauga. You have, a history, as it says, public exhibition, performance, or publication in that discipline. And you're showing that you have a commitment to your practice as an emerging artist. So let's say you're a filmmaker, you've made 1 or 2 films, but you're an emerging artist, you have less than 5 years of experience. You can show that you've been working on sets as a producer or whatever that is, right? Whatever that experience that you have, but it's just less than 5 years of experience. Yeah. So each year, as I said, we accept nominations for both established and emerging artists for astounding work in the following artistic disciplines, which I'm going to get into in a minute. Nominations in the following disciplines are open to individual groups representing a body of work produced in the last 1 to 2 years. So what we're really looking for in the application in regards to work samples, we want to see what work that you've or your group, has created in the past 1 to 2 years. So we don't really, you're more than welcome to submit, oh, I've done this 4 years ago, and this is a good example of my work. You're more than welcome to do that, but the jury is really going to be looking in the past 1 to 2 years of examples of pieces of work. So make that very clear and be a little strategic in what you're submitting for your work samples, keeping that in mind. So in regards to categories, we'll get into in a minute. We're looking for a minimum number of nominations. So MAC does reserve the right to select no winners in the category. Let's say if there's not enough nominations in a category, or if the jury deems the nominees are not qualified. And if that were the case, then we let our nominees know that is happening, and we give full transparency what's going on.
We do have an interesting question about established versus emerging.
Yes, sure.
So someone is an established artist, but most of their experience is as an international artist. They've only recently moved to Mississauga.
Okay.
So they're wondering whether they should go for emerging or established in that case.
So I'm assuming then it's 5 or less years of experience in Mississauga, in particular?
In Canada, correct.
In Canada. Okay. I would assume they are an established artist because they have been working abroad. We've had experienced established artists who are, international, and they've come from different countries, and they've recently only came to Mississauga like 1 to 2, 3 years ago. Actually, one of them actually recently won. So I would say you are an established, but then just putting information about what is your involvement in Mississauga is very clear. So just making sure that the jury sees that you're actively working in the city and contributing to the arts and culture here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yep.
A couple more questions. Someone's wondering if they've won the award in the past or multiple times. Is there any sort of bias there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, as we said earlier, it's in the past 3 years you can't apply if you've won, but if it's been more than 3 years, yes, you are more than welcome to apply. But please note though that the jury does keep that in mind. Like they can see it on your CV that's like, oh, they've won in 2019. Oh, they are eligible, but maybe somebody else, deserves it this time or something like that, right? So I'm not the jury, I don't make decisions, but that's just an example that, it will be kept in consideration, but you are eligible to apply. Yeah.
And one more question is, do the sample works have to be activities in Mississauga?
The sample works do not necessarily have to be in Mississauga, but you have to show your activity in Mississauga, right? So like I would recommend that a good chunk of the work samples shows your involvement in Mississauga. If it's not in the work samples, then I would say put it in your CV or a description of your works. So let's say you filmed somewhere else I'm just using the filmmaker analogy here, but let's say you filmed somewhere else in the country, but you're using Mississauga artists, right? So that's still showing contribution to Mississauga, right? Because it's giving back to Mississauga artists, right? So yeah.
Thanks.
Cool, great. Thank you. So I'm going to get now into the disciplines of what we have. So there's been a few changes this year, not too much, nothing crazy. So we have our film and video arts, as listed here. It's more for screen-based works, can be short or long form, directors, producers, cinematographers, and actors. Literary arts, which is like poetry, short stories, fiction, nonfiction, playwriting, things like that. Music instrumental, which would be a non-vocal performance, composition and or songwriting by an individual, group or ensemble in any genre of music. And then music solo vocalist, vocal composition, songwriting, and then music group. So excuse me. So difference this year is music group categories being presented in partnership with Mississauga Music, which is exciting. Nominations from MAC and groups selected from Mississauga Music Board of Directors will be considered. So not much changes for people who are looking to submit a nomination for music group or actively still, want nominations for this category, but Mississauga Music is just coming in to help present it. And then get into the next one. So here's where the changes is. So now we have a performing arts category that used to be dance and theater. So we've taken, both of those disciplines and combined into one. That way that this category can still go forward. We know with dance and theater, as everybody knows, it's kind of struggled in the past couple of years with the pandemic and everything else going on. So we want to make sure that this category goes forward. So let's say you're a dancer, you would apply to performing arts. If you're part of a theater production or an actor or an actress, things like that, you'd apply for performing arts. Not much different, but that's what's going forward. And then visual arts, multimedia arts we have, which is, as clearly stated, it's, digital illustration, graphic design, multimedia works, includes different types of mediums, and then visual arts, traditional forms, which can be like watercolor, printmaking, photography, graffiti art, gallery, exhibitions, etc. So that's all the disciplines there. And then let's get into the next part. Okay, so the actual selection process. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but it's evaluated by an independent jury, and that's composed of discipline-specific artists. So let's say the jury for visual arts multimedia would be multimedia artists, right? Or it would be a curator for a multimedia art exhibition or things like that. And then each, jury uses the same scoring criteria, and then a non-voting member of MAC, typically me, I audit every jury session to ensure a fair and transparent process, and I'm there to help the jury make concise decisions and answer any questions that they have. So something to keep in mind here is that submitting a nomination does not guarantee you will be selected as a finalist. That's up to the jury to decide. So of course, obviously we want nominations for we encourage all, artists to submit a nomination, but that is up to the jury to decide if you're a finalist or not. And then that's just a little bit about the scoring criteria. That's, more details are in the guidelines. And And then, oh yeah, so something to keep in mind. So we know a lot of artists are kind of like multidisciplinary as creatives. That happens quite often. Nominees can only submit to one artistic category. So let's say you're a visual artist and you're a musician. Make a concise decision of which discipline that you want to submit to. Do you have enough work samples and CV in your music works that you think you would be deemed, enough substantial nomination to submit to that? I would encourage submitting to that rather than visual art. I would encourage, look internally and decide what type of nomination is, better quality, right? So that's what I would say for that. And then, yeah, please ensure that all submission materials reflect the category of the nomination. Like, don't submit pottery to music instrumental. It's not going to fit, right? Like, make sure it's for the right discipline. Okay, so this is about our Community Arts Awards. So this is separate from Artistic Excellence Awards, but this is just a little bit more information. They're evaluated and scored using similar criteria to the Artistic Excellence Awards, except for a few, which I'll list here. The winner of the Festival Year Awards category is typically determined by a jury from local Mississauga media representatives. The Volunteer of the Year Award, the Laurie Pallet Patron of the Arts Award, and the Lifetime Achievement Award are determined and selected by our Max Board of Directors, and then who seek nominations from stakeholders. So we're all accepting from those categories, which I'll get into in a minute. The only one we don't accept nominations for is the Laurie Pallet Patron of the Arts Award. We don't accept nominations from the public for that. It's typically determined by the board of directors at MAC, but everything else is open to nominations. Okay, so I'll get into the individual awards here for this category. So this is Community Arts Group Collective of the Year. It was actually announced last year, and it did quite successfully. So we're bringing it back again this year. So what this is a community arts group collective that has made an astounding impact on the public through its creative endeavors over the past 2 years that contribute to shaping the arts and culture landscape in the city. Typically, for the nomination for this, we want to see like measurable quantitative public impact. And then we want to see them outline the group's, accessible activities, events, or performances that were made to the public in the past 1 to 2 years. So a good example of this is using quantitative numbers from, let's say, the amount of events that the group hosted last year, or, using testimonials, or, things along those nature that you would use for reporting purposes could definitely be used for a nomination like this. And then any resident can nominate a registered or unregistered community arts group that has made an impact. And then the contribution to the city is regardless of artistic practice. So this is open to all disciplines. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing which ones come through for this one. And then Festival of the Year Award. So this is, pretty clear in the title. It's an arts and cultural festival that features Mississauga artists and presents various art forms to a large and diverse audience. So we're looking for kind of specifics here. They've operated for at least 3 years. They take place in Mississauga, and then they're open to public audiences. It still could be, ticketed, let's say, but it needs to be open for the general public, right? Like, we want to see that this is open to all. And then it could be a culture and music festival. And then just a note here, it's only for in-person festivals we're looking for. We're not looking for virtual festivals. We're looking for in-person ones for this one in particular. And then this is our Lifetime Achievement Award. So this award, again, clear from the title, it's an individual's total body of work and overall career achievements in the art scene in Mississauga. So we're looking for somebody with an artistic practice with a career history of 20 or more years. They need to show evidence of their influence and inspiration for others in their artworks. Anybody can nominate somebody who's had a significant relationship with them. And then individuals may only win this award once during their lifetime, of course, which is why it's a Lifetime Achievement Award. And then it's similar to the festival, it's regardless of artistic practice, so it could be for any kind of discipline. And then last one from community arts is the Volunteer of the Year Award. So we're really looking for nominations from somebody who's done exceptional volunteerism in the arts. They could be an administrator, creative event, or arts group. We're looking for a contributor of time and resources in support of an impactful creative event, organization, or movement. We're really in this one, we're looking for somebody that shows the amount of impact they've done in Mississauga, volunteering, let's say, as a representative or founder of their group, or just, we've had winners in the past that done a lot of work for festivals, right? That's a common one. But we're just, we're looking for somebody who's given back in tons of ways and volunteering for this award. Any other questions, Rena?
Yeah, we do have a couple that have come up. So one person was wondering, with back to the Mississauga connection, if sort of what the, whether if their work takes place in Mississauga, that very much makes sense that they're supporting the arts sector in the city. But if they live in Mississauga and their work is being, they're a touring band and they're not necessarily performing in Mississauga, or their work is being displayed in art galleries in the US, would that qualify them? Something
that's like, I've seen examples of this in the past, is that the person who lives in Mississauga, but they've done stuff abroad and they done things, internationally, but they still rep Mississauga, right? They still say like, I'm from here. I've, contributed to my time here. I grew up here. I like learn from other peers here. We want to show that, you have a commitment still to here. Let's say we don't want an example of like, oh, I live in Mississauga, but I'm a Toronto based. It's like we want something that's representative of that. So it's totally fine if you live here and then you work abroad or work along in other areas. That's completely fine. But just showing in your nomination, like your connection to the city, right? Whatever that is. Yeah.
Excellent. And we did have a question, whether someone could apply as an individual and also have their arts group or their band apply as well.
So my question would be, is it for the same category, right? So like if that's, I'm
guessing it might not be.
Right.
If their band or their art group are applying for the community arts group or the music group, and then maybe they're also applying for solo vocal, or maybe they're a multidiscipline artist also applying for performing arts in theater dance.
I think that's okay. I think I would make it clear what the defining factor is in that kind of thing. So let's say the person's like, I'm applying for music instrumental, but my group is going to apply for the community group run. That's okay, right? Because it's two separate entities there. But let's say as a music instrumental, you're applying with just that the group works you've done, and then also the group comes in applying for community arts group. It looks a little like the jury is going to look at that, go, interesting, right? So make it clear, like you're applying as an individual for, let's say, music like instrumental, and then the group itself is applying as their group. Right? I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, if you do have a question like that before applying, just reach out to us.
Just reach out.
And we're pretty quick to answer.
Yeah.
Someone else is wondering, do they qualify if they're residents of another city, but do their activities in Mississauga?
So if the activities involve like you work here, right? Like you work here quite often, then yes, right? I think activities is kind of a loose term in that sense, right? Like if you, I do a group meeting once a month, like it's not as representative, like I work here consistently, right? So maybe, think about that for a minute, right?
At the end of the day, the jury does see the question of how you're contributing to Mississauga's arts sector.
Exactly.
And they'll take it into account.
Yes. Yeah. They'll take that into account.
Yep. We do have some questions about the types of reference materials, but I think we're going to get to that later in the presentation.
We are, yeah. So we'll get into actually right now. So I'll get into actually nomination requirements, hoping that answers your questions. So it's one nomination form per nominee. And I said earlier, nominee can only be considered for one category each year. I've already mentioned this about the dates. And then only nominations submitted through our online form, which I'll get and show you guys in a minute, will be accepted. We don't accept nominations by mail or email, but if you require accessibility support, please contact me. My email right there, martywards@macarts.ca, and just let us know. We're happy to help. So for type of reference material, so a bit different this year is that we don't need a one page letter of recommendation anymore. We just need contact information of one reference that can vouch for the nominee. So to explain that a little bit more in detail, a reference is exactly what you would think it might be. It's somebody that can vouch for your experience in your creative work. So let's say they're a mentor to you, or they're a band leader, or they a teacher or something like that. They're a person that can vouch for your experience. So that way, if the jury's like, I don't know who this person is, they can potentially contact that person, which you'll need to add in the contact information of that reference. And then that way they can just vouch for who you are, right? Um, oh, no. And then, yeah, all nominees must contact information from the one reference, as I mentioned. Then must be resident of Mississauga, have a significant connection to Mississauga, or have made a major contribution to arts within Mississauga, which we've mentioned. Posthumous nominations except the Lifetime Achievement Awards will not be accepted. And then the late or incomplete nominations will not be accepted or considered. The deadline to apply is Monday, March 11th at 9 a.m. So as I tell this to everybody, don't try and leave it to the last minute. I know it's hard, I know it's hard, but don't leave it to the last minute. For example, if I get emails on the weekend right before the nomination, I'm not going to see it, right? So try and submit early, and then, submit your questions early. That way I can get back to you in a timely manner, and then you're not rushing to get things done really by the deadline. So just encourage that for all.
Can I please ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Joseph Monachino. I'm part of the Mississauga Writers Group, by the way. This year, I'm going to be submitting a film. So as a actor, producer, I'm an emerging artist because I've only done that in the last 5 years. And then one of the parameters to submitting in the application is 3 to 5 links or documents of works, examples demonstrating best work or key achievements. Does that mean website or Facebook links? Is that what that means?
It would just be it could be whatever type of link is relevant to the types of works you're submitting, right? So let's say it's your film, it's a video trailer, or it would be a website link to an event you've done for the film, or it could be, a Word doc of, the bio of artists, right, involved in that. It would be anything that's relevant to the work samples. Yeah. Okay. So submission requirements. So all applications must be submitted through the appropriate work forms. They're all on macarts.ca/martys. I'm recommending to you and to everybody is that please make sure to have all your nomination materials prepared beforehand before completing the web form. You don't want to be rushing around trying to find your CD and you're like, I don't know where it is, right? So just, I recommend, writing your answers in a separate Word document. And then when you're ready to submit your MARTY nomination, you can copy and paste the answers into the web form. That way it's just smooth sailing, and it's just a lot easier. And then for the list of stuff you have to submit, it's all in the guidelines. So I believe it's on the second last page, but you would just go, oh, I need a name, I have this, I need this. You could honestly just copy that list, put it to a Word doc, and start filling it out. Copy it, put it to web form, right? Just try and make it as simple as possible for you. And then before you submit the nomination in the web form, I'll show you all this, that you'll have an option to review your answers. Because please take advantage of this. You have an option to review and go, oh, that's not right, make a change. Because you only get one option to then submit before the deadline, right? Okay. So I'll get into, before I get into the web form, what are some frequently asked questions that we normally get. So hopefully this answers maybe some questions that are like, oh, I didn't really think about that, but that's helpful. What is a professional artist? So we support the definition of professional artists from the Canada Council for the Arts, and I'll explain it to you here. So professional artist, an artist who has specialized training in the artistic field, not necessarily in an academic institution, but in their artistic field, recognized as a professional by his or her peers, working in the same artistic tradition, committed to devoting more time to artistic activity, if possible financially, and then has a history of public presentation or publication. So keeping that in mind, if you're applying for established, you have to check mark all those types of things because that means you're a professional artist, right? So keeping that in mind where you're applying. I've already kind of mentioned this, but I'll say it again. Like, what if my artistic work falls into multiple categories? Which one should I choose? Encourage to submit the one that you feel most comfortable with and has potentially the more examples of work that would make the most sense to apply for that discipline. And, you know, maybe in the future, if you have more in the second discipline, apply for that later, right? So keeping that in mind. Will Mac review my nomination materials and give me feedback? No, I'm sorry. I'd be here forever if I did that. We can give constructive feedback on the quality of your nomination materials. So, you know, as I've done throughout this presentation, I'm recommending, like, you know, put a proper CV in place, you know, put your work samples in a clear, demonstrated manner to the jury, making it very clear that, you know, this is where my Mississauga relevance is, right? But I can't give you constructive feedback of like, oh, that painting doesn't look as good as that, right? That's not our job to do that. The jury is meant to make those decisions, not staff, right? Next one. Will I receive feedback from the jury? No, unfortunately. The jury decisions are confidential and final. No feedback from the jury will be given to nominees, but we can give you feedback on how you've, you know, submitted the application. So the jury potential can come back to us and go, I really think that so-and-so could have done better examples in their CV. Yes, we can definitely give you that examples, and that will potentially help you with submitting a nomination in the future. I'm happy to, you know, answer those types of questions, but not the actual content of it, right? Who can be my reference? Again, I've said this before, it's just somebody who can vouch for the expertise and skill set of the artist. And then who should I contact regarding any questions about inquiries about my nomination? You may contact me after you have read the guidelines and still have questions. You may then contact me because most of the answers then are answered in the guidelines. So I please do recommend reading them through. Please allow up to 2 business days for response. We're really quick to normally respond, but especially as it gets closer to the deadline, just give us a little bit of time to try and craft your answer and help you. And then, as I said, we'll provide you information on how to complete the form and what components need to be submitted. Okay. Will I be contacted if I'm selected as a finalist? Yes, you will be contacted in May of 2024 because our awards is now June 26, 2024. And then what will happen if I'm selected as a finalist? That would be great. Congratulations for that. You will need to complete the finalist acceptance form that will be sent out to all finalists ahead of time. And then if you're not already a member of MAC, like I mentioned earlier, you'll need to join, excuse me. And then for more information about MAC membership, please contact my lovely colleague, Susan, who's right there. And then just a note, all finalists are required to attend the MARTY award ceremony on June 26, 2024. So let's say you're traveling, right? Here's an example of that. We would need somebody to come in your place to accept, you know, potentially the award, let's say, that you might be winning, right? We need somebody to represent you at the awards, and that would be contacted. You would contact us ahead of time, letting us know, but we really encourage you to be there, right? So, yeah. And then I think, any other questions before I get into the web form? All right, so before I get into web form, actually, I'll just show you quickly where things are on the web, actually, because I think that might be helpful. So I'm just going to close this and then get into that. So here, when you go to our website, you would just go to events, MARTY Awards, click that, and then, or you can even just go MARTY Awards nom, very clear. And then this is the nomination page that has all of the information on the guidelines. So you would click right here, and then you would read this in full that has all the information that I've just talked about and should answer majority of the questions that you have. But the biggest thing that's going to be helpful is go all the way down. Is this. So I was mentioning this earlier, but this is a list of all the information that you need in order to submit for the web form. So I would get all this material ready. So your contact information for a reference, submission requirements. So you need an artist biography, full artist biography, a CV, your social media links, and then, headshot or a band photo if that's relevant. And then this is the 3 to 5 links or documents of work samples, just demonstrating your best work. And then this is the description of work. So what you would put in here is exactly what it says. It would be describing the works and the approach to your artistic practice, describing the pieces that you've submitted in your work samples. So this is a really good opportunity to explain what those work samples are, because that helps the jury in understanding who you are and what is your artistic practice. And, you know, the jury really appreciates that because they can look at a painting and go, oh, that's nice, right? But they really want an actual description of what is the painting, why was it made, things like that, right? That would be very helpful. So yeah, and then for these web forms, they're all located here. You can click on them once you have your material ready, based on which, you know, award you're applying to. And then now I'll get you into, oh, there's a hand raised. Question.
Okay.
Give me a chance to get some water.
Hi everyone. Sorry again. I was absent for 10 minutes. Maybe it was told. But is there any fee that we should need be aware of? Any fee?
No, there's no fee to apply. But if you are selected as a finalist, you have to become a MAC member. So there is a fee to become a MAC member. It's $30 a year.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome.
Sherri,
Yes.
I was previously told that we needed 3 book samples, but the paper you showed us just now said 3 to 5. So which one is it?
Minimum of 3, maximum of 5. Yeah. Okay. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand too, or in the chat, but I'm going to get into the web form now. So here's the web form, what it looks like for artistic award nominations, which is probably a majority of you submitting for that. So this is what the first page looks like. I've automated it so it has like just answers in already, but this is what it looks like. You go next. Then you would put your nominee name, so first and last, and then an artist name if it's relevant to you. If not, just you put NA. And then email, phone number, address for yourself. And then, are you a member of MAC? Yes, no, unsure. Feel free to just select which is relevant. And then make sure to submit the right discipline that this is going to. So you're the filmmaker, go with film. And then make sure to put the right established or emerging. And there's a description of which one. And so go next. Yeah. And then this is one's for the reference. So this would be the one reference who can vouch on your behalf. So it would be first name or last name for them, their email, and their phone number. That's all we need from them. We don't need a letter of recommendation. We just need first name, last name, contact info. So then it gets into artistic support materials. So you need short artist biography, so 50 words. So as you can see here, there's too many words. So I'm gonna cut this down. Oh, wow, it did exactly 50. It's great. So, and then full artist biography. So you would select, and now I'm just gonna select Guidelines or Couture, sure. So this is now selected. Your full artist biography, this can be like, I would say don't do more than a page, right? Like don't do super long, right? Try and condense it as much as you can, even shorter than the page I'd recommend. And then your resume, again, keep it concise, you know, keep it straight and to the point. And, you know, a CV with a list of like all your exhibitions or your publications, a really good example. Headshot. Please post a really beautiful headshot if you can, that's clear and high quality because it's going to be going on tons of marketing material, right? So we want to make it like super clear. And then this would be your website. So I'm just going to put NA in all of these, but it could be, you know, our MARTYS Hub profile, Instagram, Facebook, you know, YouTube, other, etc. So if you don't have it, just put NA and then it should go through. And then work samples, this is 3 to 5 maximum total work samples. You know, make sure that if you're submitting a Google Drive link, the permissions are accessible to all, because if they're not, we can't see it, because that causes then issues. Upload work samples, and just do 1, but we'll need 3, a minimum of 3. I'm just doing this for, you know, simplicity's sake. And then work samples here would just be a link. So I'm just going to use this one. And then, you know, add in. If you don't have a link, just add NA and it's fine. And then artistic statement, description of works is what I mentioned before. It's describing the works that you've just presented above, and making it clear to the jury, what is it, right? Yep.
And it's also a great spot if your links are password protected,
Yeah.
to include the passwords in that document.
Yes, that's a great point. So if you want to keep them closed, then make sure to put the passwords in the artistic statement for access. Okay.
Artistic statement, yeah, just one question. The artistic statement, they limit it to 1 page, so it's not too much.
Yeah, I would say limit to 1 page. Concise, more the better. You've got, if you think about this, like the jury's gonna be reviewing a lot of documents, so like make it super like concise and clear, and don't give them like 10 pages, So yeah. Okay. And then what you would do now, you're here at the end, you review and submit your MARTY nomination. So you're like, yes, I have read it. Yes, I certify that this is just, we would be using your materials for marketing things. A good example of this is, let's say you're selected as a finalist in the actual award ceremony. We use like a video of a dance, you dancing, or like a photos and things like that. That's what this is used for. It's nothing crazy. And then I recommend before you submit, you can review your answers. So this is what it looks like. Your name, address. This is what everything looks like. Looks good. I'm scrolling down real quick. And then you can even print it out too to make sure that, you're happy with it. And then I could go back to their form to review anything. If I wasn't comfortable with anything, you could just click here. Or if you're happy with everything, you're like, yep, looks good, submit. No, thanks. Submit.
Is it easy to upload the audio and video files in the application, or is it complicated?
I would say if there's an audio file, I would submit it as like a Google Drive link, right? Or something like that. You can upload though, like an audio file. Like we have enough resource and like uploads for that. So it's up to you, whatever's easiest, right? Depends on how big the file is.
No, I can do short, I think it'd be a minute long, minute and a half long.
Then I'd say just upload as a file. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
easiest.
If it's an upcoming work and don't want it to be displayed yet, is there a date of release for the work but have submitted?
Oh,
So
okay.
confidentiality of things submitted if they're not public.
It kind of goes back to like the year or two, like you're showing work that's been the past year or two. You can mention it that it's coming up and it's exciting for you that it's happening, but technically if it hasn't been presented yet, it doesn't exist yet in the public, right? So you want to put work samples that have been the past year or two. Yeah.
And if it's something where your film is complete and you're on the film festival circuit,
Yes.
and it's password protected, certainly it wouldn't go beyond the jury. But we would have to share it with the jury.
Yeah, we would have to share it with the jury. So, it has to be completed enough that can be presented. Yeah, that's the best way of describing it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, Sherri and Susan.
Hi.
This is Jing Ning from NP Choir.
Hi.
I just have one question from the very beginning about the eligibility or qualification for the community arts group. Based on your guidance, must be over past 2 years experience. If the group is less than 2 years founded officially, is it still eligible?
Unfortunately, I would say no, because it has to be established for 2 years, right? So it's using the past example I just mentioned, where it's like we're looking for the past like 2 years experience, right? So that's great that you're a new group. That's lovely. Welcome to the community. I think at this point though, it'd have to be 2 years work, and then you can submit it. So it would be for what is that, 2026, right? So you would submit for the MARTYs of 2026.
But you mentioned in the one of the slides says registered or non-registered group. But for our group, let's say for such as the group founded officially registered less than 2 years, but the group had previous the same basically same group of people, but with a different name. Not officially registered, but as a function as a group for past 3 or 4 years, still eligible?
Okay. So that would be
The
two,
same like
right?
for example, for the choir group, the same same group of people,
Right.
but it's officially registered with the federal for the nonprofit for last 1.5 years. So still okay, but they have been doing the choir rehearsal performance over the past 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so if the group then has been like over that amount, over 2 years, then just in a different capacity, then you could still
Right,
submit
yeah.
for this, then make it clear in the distinguishing, right? So if you're applying for this, say, okay, the group is originally this, and now the group is this, right? So I would say you could still apply for this, but just make it clear to the jury what the impact has been in the past couple of years.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no
Clear.
problem. Any other questions?
No other questions in the chat, but
Okay. All right. So feel free to ask any other questions if you want in the chat here. We still have a couple more minutes, but I'll just explain to you what kind of the next steps are. So next steps is go to macarts.ca/MARTYS and review the guidelines in full. And then once you've reviewed the guidelines, you would submit through the web forms that are located there. And they're also on the web page right there. So you don't have to wait for the slides for this. Important dates and deadlines again, nominations are now open. You have until March 11th, 2024 at 9 a.m. And then finals will be announced in May. And then the award ceremony is June 26th, 2024. And that's it really. If you have any other questions, the best place to contact is martyawards@macarts.ca. And then the email is also in macarts.ca, and I'm sure Susan's, yeah, she's adding it right there. And yeah, so we'll be around for the next probably like 10 minutes or so if anybody else has any other questions. But thank you all for joining us, and I really do hope to see all your wonderful nominations, and so hope to see you with MARTYS. Yay.
Hi, Sherri. Sorry, I have a question, please.
Mhm.
First of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Manar from the Canadian Arabic Orchestra. I'm wondering if in the case of a group applying, being nominated and an individual from the group, does that lower the chances of any of the nominees in this case to be accepted?
So that's a really good question. So we definitely have two separate juries for that, right? So if let's say the individual is applying for theater established, right, but they're from that group, then that goes to the theater jury, right? And then the community arts group goes to a separate jury. But here's the thing. So if it is mentioned to those juries that like they're applying from two separate things, right? That's what's going on. So I've mentioned this earlier, please try and make it very clear. Our arts community is like small, but also huge in a way that everybody's kind of connected. So we understand that an individual might be working at this theater group, but also the theater group might want to apply. That's totally understandable. So just making it clear that they're two separate applications in the nomination. All right, well, I don't see any other questions coming through, so I'll probably end it off here. Again, if you have any questions throughout the nomination process after reading through the guidelines, you can go martyawards@macarts.ca and we'll be happy to help. And then also please do spread the word about this. If you have any artists or arts groups that you're a part of or know of, please do share this with them. We're trying to get as much nominations as possible, and I think it's going to be a really lovely award season. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us and hope you have a wonderful night.
thanks everyone.